Alright, we got some leaks today. 2 days until Pokemon Day. Remember, I'm going to be streaming at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the day of Pokemon Day to do some shiny hunting beforehand. But yeah, let's get into this leak. So this is about Pokemon Legends ZA. This was posted on the 12th, so what's that, 13 days ago now? So this is detailing a bunch of stuff about Pokemon Legends ZA, apparently. So, up first, we've got the game takes place in Lumio City, including the outskirts. I mean, we knew it took place in Lumio City, but the outskirts is kind of interesting. So, like, what routes are outside Lumio City? You've got the desert area, you've got, like, that fall area where you can get, like, Pumpkaboo, I think, on your way to Dendamil Town. I think that's what that route is. I forget what all the routes are that are outside Lumio City. So it's interesting that you get to go outside those areas. So maybe those are like the wild areas. Like there's going to be like the desert area, and then there's going to be like the fall themed area that's like kind of grass types and ghost types and bug types, and then there's going to be, you know, like fire types, ground, rock types in the desert area. There's going to be a water area. That could be interesting. And it says it's going to be divided into 5 different areas with 3 layers each: sky, ground, and underground. So the 5 areas that it's going to be divided into is kind of, you know, you'll look at the map of Lumio City from the ZA trailer, and it's pretty obvious now, looking at it, that there are 5 distinct pieces of this map. Like there's 5 roads splitting up the sections of Lumio City. But the thing that I don't like about this is that there's 3 layers: the sky, the ground, and then the underground. So I think a lot of people were comparing Legends Arceus to Breath of the Wild, because, you know, the art styles were very similar. It was a very open world game. There's a lot of like nature. They looked very similar. So this is trying to say that this is Pokemon's version of Tears of the Kingdom. Because if you guys don't know, Tears of the Kingdom has the ground level, which is the regular Breath of the Wild map. It has the Sky Islands, which are like up above, and then it has the depths underneath, which is like just like a giant open cave system. So I think that's what they're saying here. I could see an underground portion, but I wouldn't see it as like an entirely new map. I'd see it as kind of a wild area, almost. Or I guess like a route with an open camera, or like a free camera. I think sewers. I think you can go into the sewers when I hear you can go underground in this city map. Like, not necessarily into caves or anything. And I don't think it would span the entire city. I think you'd get access to only part of the sewers. And I guess this is the point where I say, these leaks obviously have no source. I just want to see how I can kind of see this working in the game, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think the 3 layers thing is a bit too much. It's a bit too much of a stretch for me to believe. But it would be interesting to see, because, like, how do you do the sky? Like, I feel like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you had soaring, which was like the most you could do with the sky. So how do you expand from that? But I guess if this is true, we'll see. Takes place after the events of X and Y, but isn't a sequel. Okay, so this kind of goes against what I was thinking in an earlier video, where I was saying this, I could see this being like the characters of X and Y 50 years later, and like maybe we're dealing with a Team Flare resurgence or something. But apparently that's not what it is. Apparently it just takes place in the future, but it isn't a sequel to the events of X and Y. There's a new professor. My money is still on Professor Shauna. Sycamore retired, but is an important character in the Mega storyline. That makes sense if this takes place in the future. You know, if Professor Shauna is true, and she's like 65, then, I mean, I guess then Professor Sycamore wouldn't... He'd be like 100 years old. He'd be like AZ there. But if this takes place substantially into the future, to the point where it's not connected to the events of X and Y anymore, Professor Sycamore would be substantially older and possibly retired. And apparently Sycamore is the way you get / discover the Kalos starter megas, kind of like how it is in X and Y, where you go to his lab and he battles you with the Kanto starters and you get to choose one. I think you'll be able to get to choose one of the Kalos starters from him, and then he'll give you the Mega Stone with it. And then for the other 2 Kalos starters, you'll just have to find them in the wild and find their Mega Stones in the wild. Now, this part is really interesting. Starters from Gen 7, 8, and 9. I don't know. That Gen 9... I don't know about that Gen 9. But it's interesting. I'm open to a Gen 9 starter being in Legends ZA. I mean, I want my predictions of Snivy, Piplup, and Scorbunny to be true, of course. But I'm open to a Gen 9 starter because in Legends Arceus the closest we had to that same gen was Rowlet, but that was the gen before. So it would be interesting to see, like, if a Legends game does open up that door for the precedent to have a same gen starter in the game. So apparently we're gonna get a Water Poison Primarina evolved after living around / in the sewers and giving performances for the Pokemon living there. So I think, like I said before, I think we're gonna get a limited sewer area. So probably if you... This is saying there's evolution conditions for the starters, which is cool. I honestly want this. I want this really bad. Now that I'm seeing it, I really want evolution conditions for the starters. So it sounds like here the evolution condition would be like, you have to bring Brionne to the sewers, and then once you use like 10 sound-based moves in the sewers, like use Disarming Voice 10 times or something, or use Hyper Voice 10 times in the sewer, then it'll evolve after it levels up. Or maybe it's like in Legends Arceus where you can evolve it at any time. Just use the 10 sound moves, and then it gets that little glowing Pokeball icon next to it. And then Scorbunny's going to become a Fire Fairy Cinderace, evolved after stealing treats from all the bakery shops. So we're going to get, I'm assuming, like, big chunk... I'm not opposed to that. That sounds cool. Do we even have a Fire Fairy type? I don't think we do. So that would be cool. Stealing treats from all the bakery shops. And then it evolves into this giant fat rabbit. Alright, and then we're gonna get Grass Psychic Meowscarada gained psychic powers after the species has been bred to use trickery on the streets by scammers. Okay. So, I'm assuming there's gonna be, like, there'd be a category of moves. Like Trick, Thief, Switcheroo, like those kinds of moves that once it learns them, then it'll be able to evolve into this psychic type. But that's weird, like, why would you detail the evolution method for the first 2, but not for the Sprigatito? And obviously, being bred for use for trickery doesn't mean that there's breeding in the games. Like, it doesn't mean that breeding is a mechanic. I think they mean, like, selective breeding. Like how pugs have been selectively bred over, like, hundreds of years to have, like, those really scrunched up faces. Like, that's kind of how it is. All Megas return except for the Hoenn starters and Legendaries. This is interesting, because in my last video, I said that I thought the Hoenn starters would be able to be caught in the wild. So this is interesting. They're saying that the Hoenn starters, and then Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Latios, and Latias will not be returning as Mega Evolutions. Or they won't be returning at all in the game, which is interesting. Like, why keep those out of the game? I guess because it's not really tied to Hoenn lore. And I know, like, oh, Kyogre and Groudon are technically primal reversions and not Mega Evolutions, but you tell me they have to hold an item, they transform with a cutscene where they are encased in something, and then they burst out of it with their new form, and their base stat total goes up by 100. If that's not a Mega Evolution, just because you can have more than one on a team, and you don't have to manually do it, then I don't know. But I've been calling them Megas for 10 years. But, I mean, I feel like Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza would be the easiest ones to take out, because, like, they are very tied to the Hoenn region. Whereas with Sceptile, or with the starters, and Latios and Latias, like, the starters are just regular old Pokemon. They can go anywhere, as can the Megastones. And Latios and Latias are literally roaming Pokemon. So they can they can go anywhere. Latios was in Unova, and in Johto. They could possibly be in Kalos. I think it could be cool to see Latios and Latias roaming around the Kalos region. Maybe you wake up after the story ends and it's like a parallel to Emerald. After you beat the game in Emerald, you look on the TV and it's like your mom is watching the TV or something and she's like, oh my god, there's a Pokemon flying across the screen, but I couldn't get the color. What color was it? And you have to pick red or blue. And then whichever one you pick, you get to see Latios or Latias flying around the city. That would be cool. But I digress. Next point, battles are still turn-based, but with real-time elements. Gauge that fills up after using regular moves. Allow your Pokemon to Mega Evolve. Okay. So instead of having Mega Stones, so it's kind of like in Let's Go, because Let's Go didn't have any held items, and the way they got around that in Let's Go is like you find the item and it becomes a key item. And once you have the key item, then that species will be able to Mega Evolve. So it looks like here, the Mega Stone will be a key item again. Like you'll find Charizardite X on the ground, goes in the key item pocket, and as long as you have that item and the Mega Bracelet, you'll fill up the Mega Gauge. I think that might be better, actually, than how it was before, because you kind of have to build up to it. Like, you can't just sweep your opponent's team right off the bat. You gotta build up. Megas are still powerful, so whoever evolves them first in the battle usually wins it. No limit to the amount of Megas you can do. Okay. That kind of makes sense, though. Removing the limit on Megas, but making them harder to use. Like, making the activation condition harder, but removing the cap on how many you can have, it kind of makes sense. Because if you want to run a team of full Megas, if you want to utilize all those Megas, you're going to have to work for it. It's not like in Gen 6 singles where you can run, like, you'd be able to turn 1 Mega Evolve your Kangaskhan, and then turn 1 Mega Evolve your Mawile, turn 1 Mega Evolve your Pidgeot. Like, you gotta work for this. I like that concept. I hope this is true. I'm reading through this, and I really hope this is all true. I really like this idea of a Mega Gauge. It's like the Smash meter in Smash Bros. I like it. I really do. Outside of battle, you can toggle on Mega Form to walk around and interact with them. That's cool. That sounds like something that they definitely would do. Because, like, why not, you know? If it's anything like Legends Arceus and it's open world and you can bring your Pokemon out of the ball, why not Mega Evolve it to walk around with it? Legends Arceus interactions return, except Pokemon can now move in the environment, but only in a certain radius from the player. Okay, so it's like in Scarlet and Violet in that kind of sense, where if your Pokemon goes a certain distance out, it just won't do anything. First Pokemon in the party can be fully controlled using the plus button, expanded from the Synchro Machine, which is powered by Infinity Energy, although the name of the machine is different. They can encounter different Pokemon and items on places you cannot get to as the character. Okay, so this is like what people were theorizing the Synchro Machine was gonna be in the Indigo Disc. People were like, oh, I see this Flygon flying across this canyon. What if we can use the Synchro Machine to get to places the player can't get to? And I think the Synchro Machine was kind of the demo for that. Again, obviously, I don't know if this is true. There's no source for this. But I really like this idea of utilizing your Pokemon to go places where you can't go. It's like, I've never played the Pokemon Ranger games, but this seems like something that would be in that game. Where you would, like, there'd be a place where you can't go, so you ask one of your party members to get the item for you. It seems kind of Ranger-esque, and I like that. It gives more depth to the whole, like, working with your team angle of things, rather than just seeing your Pokemon in the summary screen and on the battle screen. Like, it seems like there's going to be a lot of interactivity with your team in this game. New flying evolution called Saurion? No. Boo! We're gonna shoot that down right now, no pun intended. But I know exactly what this is going off of. And this is going off of that key art with all the evolutions in the balloons. And they've got a color for each evolution in the balloon, like as a stripe. And then there's the mysterious white color. And what people fail to realize is that white is the normal type color. So the white's for Eevee, you guys. It's not for a flying evolution. And I don't think they're going to make a flying evolution. You know why? Because people already did it better. And Game Freak has said that they don't want to do Pokemon ideas that fans have already done because they don't want fans to feel like they're plagiarizing from the fans. So I don't think there's going to be a flying evolution. Antagonists resurrect the long-lost A legendary, works similar to Zygarde, lots of components the antagonist is collecting. Wants to take over Lumio City as part of his world domination plan, has a god complex and wants to be the Arceus of the world. Oh no. Like a dictator. She wants to decide who should live and who should die. So... Alright, this... this part, I mean, if you didn't believe this was just a prediction and not like a leak, this should be it. I mean, this person uses, in the same entry, they say the antagonist is a man and a woman. They clearly weren't thinking this through very well. So the antagonist wants to collect the A legendary in order to, like, hold all the power in the world. This is basically like if Getsus was somehow even more insane. Because, like, I don't think Getsus wanted to kill anyone, he just wanted to be a king of the world. But it seems like this person wants to, like, cast judgment on people. Interesting concept for a villain, kind of. But I don't think... I don't know. I don't think this would be a... I don't think this could be a villain in a Pokemon game. This is me editing the video because my initial recording of this explanation was very long-winded. So I do think this character could work because technically Getsus is this type of character. But I don't think Getsus said that he wanted to decide who lived and who died. I think that terminology is just a bit too evil, I guess, for a Pokemon game. So that's ultimately why I don't think it could work. I think a character who wants to be like a dictator could work as an antagonist in Pokemon because we've already seen it, but just not the whole I want to be able to kill off who I want to. I don't think that could work in a Pokemon game. And then, last but not least, you meet Zygarde at 10% form in the garden of your house. Injured. Cell-fetching time. Again, I think we're going to meet Zygarde early on into the game. It's possible that he's like the last bit of the tutorial. Maybe you go on a mission for the professor, and you find Zygarde somewhere. You decide to catch it, and bring it back to the professor, and they're like, oh my god, that's a legendary Pokemon. You should keep that close to you, because if someone collects all its cells, it can get very dangerous, so make sure you don't let it into the wrong hands. And, like, maybe you should collect the cells for yourself, so that, you know, you don't let them into the wrong hands. That's a cool thing. So, that's it for these leaks. They had us in the first half, starting at the flying evolution. Like, really the last three were... I mean, I guess the flying evolution and the antagonist thing were really, like, the lame parts of this. I don't think those are going to happen at all. But it's interesting to think about, like, this could happen. I mean, anyone's prediction is as good as anyone else's. Just like I've said in the past, you know, no one knows anything about this game except for the people who are working on it. So, we'll see. So, you know, make sure if you like the video, leave a like. If you dislike the video, leave a dislike. Put your predictions for ZA in the comments. And I will see you again on Pokemon Day at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time.